Good morning, Madam President and Senators. What do you wish to project and reveal to others when you attend and make your presentations in this hallowed chamber? What does your actions, words, and interactions reveal to them? Romans chapter 12, verse 10 states, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself." The Lenten season invites individuals to engage in a time of self-examination and introspection. This time of personal reflection can invite each person to make changes that can be beneficial for their personal development and to refine them and to make them better persons to assist in the leadership that you give to others. Senators, take time to keep before you your purpose for this season in your life. Proverbs 4:23 states, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." It is important in this season as leaders to determine, what am I putting into my being? Who or what is leading me? Am I on course for my purpose, or do I need to evaluate and make adjustments? Pastor Miles Monroe once said, "Our life is the sum total of all the decisions we make every day, and those decisions are determined by our priorities." When you are sure about what is priority, each day you will know how to make decisions, and it will keep you on course to continue to be a purposeful leader and person. Secondly, personal development means as leaders that you must cultivate perseverance and stamina. There are times when you will be celebrated, and there will be times when you'll be ridiculed. But always check the source of the words. We never know what's in the heart of a person and why they may choose to flatter or critique you. When you are a grounded person and leader, you will not be moved by words, but you will stay focused and stay on course. 2 Chronicles 15:7 states, "But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded." As senators, I encourage you to take time for your personal development, to take quiet time, to spend time being renewed, and every day to have daily devotions and time with God. As you move into your purpose, you will be a lightning rod for attention, some positive, some negative, but cultivate wisdom, so that you will not be swayed, you will not be moved to miss this opportunity to make your contribution in this juncture in your life. Leadership can be hard at times, even when you are successful, because there will always be persons who feel that they can do a better job than you. But keep plodding along. This is your time to serve and not theirs. Give your best to your God and to your nation. 2 Thessalonians 3:13 states, "As for you, brothers and sisters, never tire of doing what is good." Let's pray. Dear God, we give you thanks for today, for each senator, their families, and all the people whom they serve. In this season of personal reflection, help them to take the time needed to invest in themselves both spiritually and holistically, so that they can become an even more focused in their responsibilities as leaders, as family members, as citizens of our country. In times of success, never let them become arrogant. In times of trouble, fill them with your peace and your courage. We give you thanks for the service that they give, and we give you thanks for them. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Good morning, Senators. Today is the 3rd of April, 2025 morning session of the Senate. Adoption of minutes. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good morning, Madam President. I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate held on Thursday, 12th of March, 2025 be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the Senate session held on the 12th of March, 2025 be adopted. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The minutes of the 12th of March, 2025 are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, swearing in of new senators, communications by the President. This morning, we welcome to the Senate chamber the 6th grade class of Queens College. The Comets are in the Senate today, and it's a pleasure to have all of you. And I must say, you sounded so angelic when you made that prayer, the Lord's Prayer this morning. It was just so beautiful to have the backup. Your expression of the Lord's Prayer was extremely angelic and just very much appreciated. And I can tell that some good things are happening at Queens College. And I also wish to congratulate you, the school, on their recent win at BAISS. Congratulations to all of you for a job well done. And today we have with us some teachers. The first is Miss Braquel Newton. She's a grade 6 head teacher. Thank you. And thank you for coming. And secondly, we have Miss Vanessa Campbell, grade 6 teacher. I just want to thank all of you educators for all of the work you do in molding and instructing our young minds. You all make the Bahamas a better place, and we thank you and we appreciate your contribution. Also here we have the Queens College Student of the Year, Kyrie Campbell. Can you please stand? Congratulations to you, Carrie Campbell. May you continue to excel, and we celebrate your achievements and continue to go from strength to strength. We're expecting great and wonderful things from you. Thank you so much for being such a great and wonderful student. In addition, we also have with us Victor Dean. Can you please stand? And remain standing, please, Victor Dean. Victor Dean is the grandson of Henry Bostwick, who served as President of the Senate from 1992 to 2002. And his grandmother is Mrs. Janet Bostwick, who was the first woman elected to Parliament in the year 1982. So and your mother, Lisa Bostwick Dean, was also a senator in these chambers. So, Mr. Dean, you have big shoes to fill. We wish you all the best. I met, one of the senators is saying that you should choose your chair. But we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, knowing that you will also leave a mark in this Bahama land. So go forth and do the very best you can. The entire Bahamas is expecting great and wonderful things from you. All the best, and please give your grandparents, Mr. Henry Bostwick and Mrs. Janet Bostwick, our best wishes and our best regards, and also your mother, Mrs. Lisa Bostwick Dean. And thank you all so much for coming. And I must say, whenever we have the gallery filled, especially with young children, it makes my job so much easier, because my senators, they abide by all of the rules and regulations, and they do exceptionally well. So I'm expecting a great day from them today. And thank you all. Okay. Next on the agenda is messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Messages from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 36, message to the Honorable the President and honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Defense Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 19th March, 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker. Bahamas number 37, message to the Honorable the President and honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 26 March 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker. Bahamas number 38, message to the Honorable the President and honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters. House of Assembly, Nassau, 2nd April 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Alkins.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following orders: the miscellaneous written law rectification order 2025, the Industries Encouragement Approved Products Bahama Island Homes Limited Order 2025, and the Industries Encouragement Approved Manufacturer Bahama Island Homes Limited Order 2025.
Order the document be brought up. Order the documents do lie on the table. For the laying of documents,
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following regulations: the Price Control General Amendment Regulations 2025 and the Emission Reduction Initiatives and Incentives Regulations 2025.
order the documents be brought up. Order the documents do lie on the table. For the laying of documents,
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following notices: the Passport Amendment Rules 2024 Appointed Day Notice 2025, the Trial by Judge Alone Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2024 Appointed Day Notice 2025, and the Animal Protection and Control Act 2010 Appointed Day Notice 2025.
order documents be brought up. Order documents do lie on the table. For the laying of documents,
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following directions: the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock number 2, 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054 directions 2025, and the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054 directions 2025.
order documents be brought up. Order the documents do lie on the table. For the laying of documents,
There are none at this time, Madam President.
thank you, Senator Halkitis. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills.
Madam Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time the bill for an act to promote healthy lifestyles and wellness, to empower the adoption of national, regional, and global public health policies to reduce the incidence of non-communicable diseases and premature death linked to unhealthy food consumption and harmful lifestyle behaviors, and for matters connected therewith.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following document be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to promote healthy lifestyles and wellness, to empower the adoption of national, regional, and global public health policies, to reduce the incidence of non-communicable diseases and premature death linked to unhealthy food consumption and harmful lifestyle behaviors, and for matters connected thereto. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to promote healthy lifestyles and wellness, to empower the adoption of national, regional, and global public health policies, to reduce the incidence of non-communicable diseases and premature death linked to unhealthy food consumption and harmful lifestyle behaviors, and for matters connected thereto.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time the bill for an act to amend the automatic exchange of financial account information act.
for the first reading of, is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the automatic exchange of financial account information act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read for a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, we had previously had read for first time a bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters. And I'm advised that in the other place, they amended Section 3 to extend the jurisdiction of the bill to the entire islands of the Bahamas, to the whole country. And so what we would seek to do, Madam President, is withdraw the bill that has been previously laid and replace it with this new bill, which incorporates the amendment, and we ask the concurrence of the side opposite in so doing. Seeking concurrence. Mr.
yes.
Madam President, this is the longest time I've ever had to give my concurrence, but I give it nonetheless.
Thank you, Senator Handfield. Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to regulate mining, prospecting, mining, and related, mineral prospecting and mining and related matters.
For the first reading of bills,
None at this time, Madam President.
second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President, and good morning once again. And I would like to join with you colleagues and welcoming all of the students from grade 6 of Queens College into the gallery. Welcome to the Senate. And as the Madam President has said, when we have visitors to the gallery, particularly when we have young students, we tend to be on our best behavior.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I welcome you, and you are witnessing firsthand a part of what we call the legislative process here in the country. This is the upper house, meaning that the bills that we are debating here have already been debated and passed in the House of Assembly. And this is a part of the process of passing laws that impact the lives of our citizens. So it's a very, very serious responsibility and serious business in that what we do here impacts the lives of each one of our citizens in some way. Some might be impacted. As we go into the debate, you'll see what we're debating today. Some may be impacted more directly, but generally we are making laws for the good governance of the country. And so we welcome you. We're happy to have you here, and thank you for your interest and your attention. And looking over the group of you, I'm sure that in a not too distant future, we will have some of you, and I say this with all sincerity, that we'll have some of you in that other place and as well this place. And so your job is to continue to prepare yourselves by applying yourselves to your studies and exercising the discipline that would see you excel in your studies and be able to contribute to the society in any number of ways, all of which are very, very important in the areas of service and the professions. But also, please, some of you consider public life and the service that you can give in this area. So once again, welcome you. I had the opportunity to speak at the graduation for QC, I think it was the year before last. And when I was introduced, when the young student who was introducing me said, he's a graduate of St. Augustine's College. And there was a big sigh in the room. But that was it. I was very well received, and thank you for that. It was wonderful to be able to share with your school in that way, and I just want to encourage you to continue to excel. Madam President, I rise to move for second reading and committal of the Defense Amendment Bill 2025. And Madam President, I want to, before I get into just a few words I want to say about the Defense Amendment Bill, say thank you to all of the stakeholders, including the staff at the Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Inland Revenue, the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation, the Consumer Protection Commission, all those who were involved in seeing us have a seamless adjustment of the VAT rate on food, unprepared food, in food stores, convenience stores, and at the border from 10% to 5% that came into effect on the 1st of April, which was the day before yesterday. And I think everybody now realizes that it was not an April Fool's joke, but that it is in effect, and people have already begun to feel the impact of it. And no, it does not include pet food. I had somebody ask me yesterday, is it all pet food? No, it does not include pet food. But it is, Madam President, part of our continued efforts to impact the cost of living where we can. And I would say this morning, I had the opportunity to speak at the press briefing at the Office of the Prime Minister, and foremost on the minds of the journalists present were the events yesterday afternoon where we saw the President of the United States implement a vast wide-ranging array of tariffs, wide-reaching array of tariffs on different countries around the world, the Bahamas included, a 10% defense amendment bill. Yes. The vast array of tariffs, and that was foremost on the minds of people because they're concerned. And I say that to say, Madam President, there's a lot of actions that we can do here in the Parliament, in the legislature, in the Senate, as part of our Parliament. A lot of things that we can do to impact the lives of our citizens. But there are a lot of things that happen that we have absolutely no control over, that we cannot predict. We cannot predict when it would happen, and we cannot predict when it will be reversed. And so what is on us is to control what we can control, and in our way, in conjunction with our neighbors and our partners, to seek to influence policy so that we are not so negatively impacted by things that go on around the world and by fight that big people get in that, we had nothing to do with. So I say that to say, Madam President, the fear is that with the introduction of tariffs, there possibly might ensue, or a trade war has already started. And the possibilities, if it persists and gets, there's no adjustment or no negotiation that lead to an agreement, how does that impact the world economy, and how does that trickle down to us? And so while we are not fearful and we do not panic, these are things that we have to be mindful of and pay attention to. And even as the government, we continue to control the things that we can control, and we continue to move forward. And so our actions in controlling some of the things we can control, reducing VAT from 12% to 10%, further duty reductions in 2022 on fresh food and healthy food, further reductions to zero for about 50 food items, further reductions on another seven categories, increasing the minimum wage, expanding price control, beefing up consumer protection. And Senator Roll, he stepped out just now, but he's taken on that job with enthusiasm and alacrity, if I might use that word, Madam President. And I want to say to the public, I made the point yesterday because people are still concerned about the cost of living and the price of items in the food, and I just wanted to, I think a lot of people might not be aware that not every item in the food store is price controlled. And so you might hear people saying, this thing is so high, price control needs to go there. There's a defined list of items, just over 30 or so. There's a bread basket and an extended bread basket. And I think we make every effort to make sure that people know what those things are. But that continues to be a concern, but I just wanted to make that point. Not everything comes under control. But the things that we can have an impact on, like taxes and like trade diversification, trying to find different sources and direct sourcing of things that we consume, we continue to pursue, and it becomes even more urgent in this sort of environment where there's this tit-for-tat imposition of tariffs, Madam President. Madam President, moving to the Defense Amendment Bill, I'll say just a few words. This bill amends the Defense Act, which was passed in, I think it was September 1979, and ascended to in March 1980, 31st of March, almost to the day, today. That's what, 45 years ago. March 31st, 1980, 45 years. And we all remember, Madam President, March 1980, the force was established by legislation, and those the horrific and traumatic events that took place shortly thereafter, 10th of May, 1980, 6 weeks after, roughly, after the establishment by law of the Defense Force, where our vessel, the HMDS Flamingo, was attacked, and sadly we lost 4 brave, gallant young Bahamian Marines in the incident. And we remember them on this occasion as we address this bill, Madam President. We honor their service and the service of all of those who have over the years given yeoman service. And I can only imagine, Madam President, those first young men at the time who enlisted. They were indeed trailblazers, establishing a new national institution. And, we can only imagine the pride and patriotism that filled their hearts as they went about their duties, Madam President. I was saying to one of my colleagues just now, Madam President, that I had the opportunity yesterday, as a matter of fact, to meet one of the Marines who some years ago was, the Bahamians might remember, when I think it was 3 of our Marines were kidnapped by Honduran fishermen and held captive for a time. And I was in a certain area yesterday, and I met this young man and happened to, had a little conversation with him, and he was, he's now retired, but I just said, it brought to mind the other time when I was doing some campaigning and some years ago in Adelaide, and to come across the son of, I think it was David Williams, or Edward Williams. Edward Williams. And the young man said, I said, what's your name? He said, my name is Edward Williams. I said, you related to the Edward Williams? He said, yes. And he was about, I think he said he was 4 years old at the time of the incident. And I say that to say, we, in such a small country, Madam President, you walk around and you meet people who were part of significant events in history. And the young man was doing very well. He had his own family, his own house at the time, and so I was just able to have a few words with him. And just yesterday, it's so coincidental to meet one of the gentlemen who was kidnapped, and subsequently he was able to return home. And so we also want to, again, recognize our officers who years ago served in peacekeeping roles in Haiti. Thank you again for your service. And sometimes, Madam President, it's always amazing how we have people who are giving service to this country in so many ways. And so many times they don't have all the tools that they require, they don't have all the resources that they need, but they make the best of it and they just keep going. And they take a tremendous amount of pride in what they do. And when and they do it because of the country. And I always remember speaking to a defense force officer, and he says, as a defense force officer, and we use the term officer to mean everybody. At Bahamian, when we say defense force officer, we mean everybody on the defense force. We don't make the distinction. Speaking to him, he says, yes, as an officer, I maintain my military bearing. And I didn't know what it meant. I had to go Google it, right? And what it meant was, a discipline and the way you carried yourself, so that everybody knew you were part of a disciplined force. And, that always stands out. And I just encourage all the men and women of the force to, again, thank you for your service. And we know that sometimes you operate under less than ideal circumstances. And, but we support you, and we thank you, and we appreciate you. Madam President, just to move now to the bill, the Defense Amendment Bill 2025 is what we are doing is we are amending section 18 of the Defense Bill that was passed in 1980. And we are amending it by withdrawing the entire section, and I'll just read what it is that we're withdrawing and what we're replacing it with, and that is the essence and the substance of what we're doing today. So if I go to the Defense Bill, the Defense Bill 1980, Section 17 says, I'll do 17 and 18 just to give a full context. Section 17 of the bill says, quote, the term for which a person enlisting in the regular force may be enlisted the term for which a person enlisting in the regular force may be enlisted shall be such term beginning with the date of his attestation, that's the date he joined, or she now, and not exceeding 25 years or such period as may be prescribed. And then it goes on, that was section 17. Section 18 says, notwithstanding anything in section 17, any Marine of the regular force who at any time has completed 25 years of service or such other prescribed period may, with the approval of the competent authority, re-engage with the regular force for such further period or periods of service as may be prescribed until he attains the age of 55 years. So you join, you can do 25 years, you can ask for an extension and get it up to the age of 55 years. And so what we're doing with that section 18 that I just read is we are withdrawing that and we are replacing it with, notwithstanding anything in section 17, any Marine of the regular force who at any time has completed 30 years of service or such other prescribed period may, with the approval of the competent authority, re-engage with the regular force for such period or periods of service as may be prescribed until he attains the age of 60 years. And so what we're saying is you engage, you do 25 years, you can get an extension. As it stands now, you can extend up until you are 55. And what we are changing today is we are making it possible for you to serve up until 60 years. And it says, a person to whom this section applies who retires from the Defense Force shall within 6 months from the date of his retirement reapply for re-engagement. So you have a 6-month period to decide whether you want to be re-engaged or not. And so it's given the option that if a person seeks to be re-engaged, they no longer have a maximum of 55 years. If they want to, they can go home at 55. If not, they can seek to be re-engaged up until they reach the age of 60. And so it's very interesting, Madam President, because, the first time I heard the word competent authority was during, no, it wasn't during COVID. That's not true. First time it was really spoken about a lot was during COVID, but, it's in financial services legislation as well. But this goes back to 1980, they were using that word, and it's just amazing. That's just an aside. From 1980, that was a term. Yeah. And in this case, the competent authority is the officer in charge. It says in the thing, competent authority means such officer as may be prescribed, whichever officer is the person responsible, officer in charge. Madam President, and the reason is simple. We have individuals who are living longer, living healthier lives, they're being productive much longer. 1.60 years old was considered ancient, and now that with people being in the workplace longer, living longer, they can be much more productive and give service at a later age in their life. In terms of personal circumstances, people are marrying later, having children later, and so at the age of 60, much service can still be provided by these individuals, and the country can have the benefit of their expertise, their experience, and all of the advice that they can give. And even if people might say, well, it's a rigorous undertaking, it's a rigorous profession, it's physical, and it's taxing. But I'm sure there are many areas in which more senior people can serve. And what this legislation does is just gives us the flexibility that should the individual decide that they want to do some more years, they're healthy, they're fit, they're able to do it, they're able to continue to contribute, it gives us an opportunity to have those people continue to serve us. Madam President, that's the intention of the bill. And so in those few words, I just wanted to indicate what it is that we're seeking to do and move for a bill for an act to amend the Defense, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Defense Act. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Yarborough. Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Alkitis. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable J. Ann Major.
Madam President, it is a pleasure to be back in this honorable chamber today. I'd like to take this moment to also welcome the students of Queens College. It is always a pleasure to be joined by young people in the Senate. I think it's never too early to expose our young people to the legislative processes in the Bahamas. So I hope that you guys learned something today and that you leave inspired by what you see here in the chamber today. So welcome. Madam President, I also wish to commend the Ministry of Finance and the Consumer Protection Commission, as well as my fellow directors of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation and all of the stakeholders for the seamless transition of VAT from 10% to 5% on food items, and for the continued work in ensuring that Bahamians are informed while we continue to work as an administration to reduce the cost of living for Bahamians. Madam President, I would also like to take a brief moment to extend a happy birthday to my grandmother, who celebrated her 95th birthday this past Monday. As usual, I know she is tuned into the Parliamentary channel, so I say happy birthday, Grammy, to live to celebrate 95 years surrounded by your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren is truly a blessing. And I pray for her continued health, happiness, and countless many more beautiful moments surrounded by love. We love you. Madam President, I also want to take a moment to recognize that April is Autism Awareness Month. Just yesterday, on April 2nd, we would have joined the global community in observing World Autism Awareness Day, a time dedicated to increasing awareness, understanding, and promoting inclusion, and advocating for the rights of individuals with autism. Autism is not a disability, it is a different ability. As a nation, my hope is that we continue to foster environments that support individuals on the autism spectrum and their families, ensuring that individuals on the spectrum have access to quality education and meaningful opportunities and the resources needed to thrive. Let us use this month to reinforce our commitment to awareness, acceptance, and impactful action in support of the autism community. Madam President, I turn now to offer my contribution to the Defense Amendment Bill of 2025. This bill, while very simple in that it only modifies the retirement and re-engagement provisions for members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, it is also a reflection of this administration's proactive approach to strengthening national security. Madam President, the Defense Amendment Bill of 2025 repeals and amends Section 18 of the Defense Act. Section 18 was initially amended by the Minnis administration in 2020, and that amendment provided that any Marine who had completed 30 years of service may re-engage with the Defense Force for such further period until he attains the age of 60 or renders 40 years of service, whichever is earlier. With the 2025 bill, the provisions regarding re-engagement have simply been limited to the age of 60, regardless of the total years served. So this would allow a Marine who would have joined the force at, say, 18 to be re-engaged until he's 60 as opposed to his late 50s under the previous amendment. Madam President, the 2025 amendment allows us to retain seasoned, experienced Marines, enhancing the operational effectiveness of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, which is crucial for addressing security challenges such as maritime protection and disaster response. By re-engaging trained professionals, this also represents a strategic approach to resource management by reducing the time and expense associated with having to train new recruits. Madam President, knowing our history is essential in understanding the foundation of our nation, its identity, values, and its institutions. And a pivotal moment in our nation's history was the establishment of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force in 1980 under the leadership of Sir Lyndon. Sir Lyndon's vision for a self-sufficient and a well-equipped defense force was critical in ensuring that the Bahamas could maintain control over its vast maritime territory and remain secure in the face of regional and global threats. Madam President, this bill represents a continued commitment to the ideals laid out by Sir Lyndon, and I am proud to stand to second this bill. By modernizing the force and retaining experienced Marines, this bill plays a critical role in safeguarding our country's borders and maintaining national security. Madam President, as I stand to support this bill, may God continue to guide and protect our Marines as they protect this wonderful nation we all call home. May God continue to bless the Prime Minister of the Bahamas and this administration as we continue to work to drive real change and progress for the betterment of the citizens of this great country by tackling the challenges that have plagued us for years. And may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Honorable J.I. Major. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Defense Act. Before we proceed with the debate, the chair wishes to recognize the second cohort of students who are visiting from Queens College. We used another early today. We had 40 students, and today I think we have another 41 students. I'm sorry, my mic was off. So the chair wishes to recognize the second cohort of students who are coming from grade 6 at Queens College. Early this morning, we had 40 students, and the second set, there are 41 students. So we want to welcome you, all of you, to the upper chamber. We are thankful that you came to personally observe the Senate chamber as we debate this legislation. And with the students, we have Miss Michelle Glasgow. Can you please stand? Thank you. And also Mr. Noel Turnquest. Can you please stand? Just want to extend my gratitude to the educators for all of the hard work that you do with molding minds and impacting them in such a positive way, and for also coming and visiting the Senate chamber. And I also understand if you visited the House of Assembly and that you're also on your way to the Court of Appeal. So it's a great and exciting day for the students, and I wish you all the best, and I hope that you continue to learn through this experience. Thank you all. And as we proceed, as many, Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I join you in welcoming the students from QC, future leaders of our country. I was particularly pleased to see all of you, but particularly pleased to see Master Victor Dane, whom you recognized as the son of Senator Lisa Bostwick, grandson of Henry Bostwick, QC, and Dame Janet Bostwick, people who have made tremendous contributions to the public life of the Bahamas. And like you, your parents have made tremendous contributions as well, and they expect that you would pick up the banner or the baton after them and help to make the Bahamas what we believe it can be, the best little country in the world. There's a lot riding on your shoulders. We are depending on you. Those of us who are here are moving off the scene. And one day, if I live long enough, some faster than others, some faster than others, and one day I hope to see, if I live long enough, some of you sitting in this place and perhaps contributing to the public life of the Bahamas in the way that we try to do, despite, some things, back and forth that we do, but we do it all in the best interest of the development of people and country that we love, the Bahamas. I'd also like to join Senator Major in commending REACH for the autism awareness that they have brought to the Bahamas since 1999. REACH is a group that advocates for children with autism or children that are on the spectrum. And this body does not have, I was listening on my way here this morning, they had some representatives on the radio. They don't have quite the data to say how many children may be impacted in the Bahamas by autism. We like to say children that are differently able, because we know many of them are actually geniuses. One very familiar one is Bill Gates, whom we all know held that position as the wealthiest man in the world for a very long time, before he was removed, I think, by the space fella now. Yeah, but Elon Musk. Okay, but statistics out of the United States suggest that 1 in 36 children may be impacted by autism. Of course, on a per capita basis, ours would be a little less, because I think they have over 300 million people, and we in the Bahamas, we around 400,000. Nevertheless, the advocacy and education of groups like REACH have brought awareness to the subject in the Bahamas. Early on, kids with autism and such mental challenges used to be hid away. As a family island boy, I know that. You would not know that there are members of families until you go to a particular house and you'd say, well, who's this? And you would discover such a child. But we have come a long way in that regard. Finally, I'd like to extend birthday wishes to Grammy, right? Who is celebrating her 95th today, grandmother of our own Senator Major. Grammy, you have done a wonderful job. My Grammy would say to me, you've done well. You have your very own senator sitting in this place and acquitting herself quite well, and you ought to be very proud of her, as I'm sure everybody around her is. I'd also like to extend birthday wishes to my father, who today turns 90. Yeah. Daddy, I don't know if you're watching, but I wish the very best for you on this your 90th birthday. I say this publicly, as I said to you privately. When I was a boy growing up, at some point in my life, I wanted to really end your life because of the way you disciplined me at times. But I think if parents of today, extend the same type of discipline that I was reared in, and many of us, no, I don't mean that in a bad way, we would have a better country. My father was a disciplinarian extraordinaire, and I was not allowed to get away with anything. And so, and it helped to make me and shape me to be the man I believe that I think I am sometimes today. And so I thank you, and over the years you've grown to be among my bestest friends, confidant, supporter, advisor, and I love you, man. Enjoy your birthday today. 90 years old. I am moved somewhat emotionally today because we debate this amendment to the Defense Act. And I listen to my colleagues who speak of the Defense Force with so much pride, as all Bahamians ought to. And I say that because I was lucky enough to join the Defense Force in 1980 following the Flamingo incident of which you speak. I was just walking up the street in Dundas Town, Abaco, going to the basketball court, and I found a leaflet on the road which was written by Reverend Major, Dr. Major at the time, Pastor Major, and it spoke about the Flamingo incident. And I realized that we had lost these 4 young seamen, Edward Williams, Austin Smith, Frederick Stirrup, and David Tucker. Very young men cut down in the prime of their lives whilst on patrol in the southwest Bahamas, effecting an arrest of Cuban fishing boats. And they were mercilessly attacked by Cuban fighter jets, and we lost them. And perhaps it was with some sense of hubris that I determined right then and there, after I read that, 16 or 17 years old, that when I turned 18, I would go and defend the Bahamas from Cuban attacks. Now, I was also fortunate enough to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And the first thing that I did was to speak with my counterpart from Cuba about the incident and to remind, because we had this issue that we have, one you mentioned just then as well, about poachers that came from the Latin American countries. And they drift in the median line between ourselves, the delimitation mark between ourselves and Cuba. And when they see our Defense Force vessels approaching, they run into Cuban waters and find safety and shelter to avoid being apprehended by Bahamian authorities. And I said, you know, we have a delimitation agreement with you, which you are not honoring. And he said, well, what is that, Minister? And I said, well, there's a section in the agreement that says that we are to protect each other's resources. You are allowing your brothers from Latin American countries to come into the Bahamas, remove our resources, poach them illegally, and find succor and support in your country. And he said, well, I'm going to look into that. And he did. And one day I was in Abaco doing something, and I got a call from Commodore Bethel, Tellis Bethel, who said to me that, you know, there are three Dominican vessels that just absconded our patrols and ran into. We have some of their smaller boats fishing. We have those crews, but we want the bigger ones. And so I immediately picked up the phone and called my counterpart in Cuba, and I told him. I said, remember we had this discussion? He said, yes. I said, well, there are three. And he said, I'll call you right back. God is my living witness. Called back and said, I have them. Where do you want them to be brought? And then I called the AG's office. My good friend was there still, Justice Klein. And I said, Lauren, you know, I have this issue. And we worked it out, and we received those vessels. And they were brought before courts in the Bahamas. I say all of that to say how important the role of the Defense Force is in our country. It is designed to protect our sovereign integrity, to protect what we call the heritage of the Bahamas. You know, we've inherited a wealth of things, particularly in the sea. And this is one thing that Sir Lyndon, I'll get to the bill, but this is one thing I believe Sir Lyndon got right, who was, I believe, the first Minister of National Security of Defense, because we didn't have national security then. He was the first minister, and he didn't go the way of the other Caribbean countries who built on the West India Regiment, which is an infantry kind of a constabulary army kind of thing that they grew from, but recognizing that we had an archipelago of over 1,000 square miles of sea and marine environment. So Lyndon determined that we would build a force that was a smaller blueprint of the Royal Navy. And so you'd find that our officers trained in the United Kingdom. Our Marines over the years have done training. We have Green Berets and the works that have trained in the United Kingdom. I say this unashamedly. No offense to the others, but I believe Lyndon, may he rest in peace, was the best Minister of Defense that we've ever had in this country. Now, as you've heard already, we've come to amend Section 18 of the bill, which will extend the age of retirement. I'm a nationalist, it doesn't matter, I'll be okay. We'll extend the age of retirement from compulsory retirement from 55 to 60, and also extend, I understand that we did this, and I must have been asleep or may have fought in the cabinet over it another time, to 30 years of service instead of 25 years. That is the only thing that I find issue with. All it means is that a Marine, and there are two groups in the Defense Force. There are enlisted personnel and then there are what we call commissioned officers. We all say officers, but we're not all really commissioned officers, right? There are enlisted people who are, you join as a Marine seaman, and you go to the rate of Chief Petty Officer, and then you can, the highest rate that you can attain as an enlisted person is a Force Chief Petty Officer. Now, there's also the Commissioned Officer Corps, which you would join because of your academic qualifications as a midshipman, and you go all the way to the rank of Commodore. Now, I'll use this as an opportunity to do this. A lot of people say the Commodore of the Defense Force, because it's easy to say that, the highest ranking officer in the service, when we say Commissioner of Police. But Commodore is a rank. It is not an appointment. So the appointment is really Commander Defense Force and the CDF. But we don't like to say Commander Defense Force because a rank in the chain of command is Commander. But Commander Defense Force only signifies that this is the highest ranking officer, the competent authority, if you will, in the service. So I could be the Commander of the Defense Force and be a captain and not a Commodore. I could be the Commander of the Defense Force and be a commander, or a senior commander, or whatever the government determines my rank should be as the Commander of the Defense Force. And so I wanted to take some time and explain that, because that speaks to what we are really doing. What we are doing is enlisted personnel before now had to retire at the age of 55. We're now extending that by another 5 years for most of the reasons which you've heard stated. They're living longer. They are highly trained and qualified, trained all over the world at the best military schools and service schools in the world. And that's another thing, and I'm going to really advocate for the Defense Force today. That's another thing that the Defense Force affords you, an opportunity to train in the best institutions all over the world. I had never been to a college before I joined the Defense Force. And since then, I have been trained in the University of the West Indies, where I read law, UB, where I read law. I have been trained in the Naval Postgraduate School in America, which is one of the most prestigious military schools in America, where I did a master's degree in security studies. And it focused on counterterrorism policy and planning. And I would not have done all of that if I had not taken a life of service. And I'm very grateful to the people and government of the Bahamas for affording me such privilege. And look where I wound up. In a place like this, debating an extension to an age for Marines and enlisted people in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And to that, all I say is, God is good. Now, the reason why I disagree, and I don't recall if I did then at the table in the cabinet, with the age of the extension to 30 years to serve before you can vest for pension, is because none of our regional counterparts, to the best of my information, are required to go beyond 25 years of service before they become eligible for retirement. If I was a part of this, I repent. It was purely an oversight. Some may wish to, as I could have. If I joined at age 18, I could have essentially retired at age 43. And here I believe provides another opportunity. Retired with full pension benefits. Now, some countries don't allow you to get your full pension until you reach the national retirement age of 65. Some countries do that. But in the Bahamas, we don't do that. We allow you to have your pension, your military pension, after you vested and you determine to retire. I'm not saying to change it. I'm just saying some countries do this. But countries in our region, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, none go beyond 25 years of service. And this is for good reason. You know, over the years, as a member of the Defense Force, you are required to be deployed for long periods of time. I myself, I heard the minister mention it, talked about peacekeeping. We have personnel in Haiti now on a security mission in detail, where I spent 6 months in Haiti doing peacekeeping in the early 90s. slept on a cot, lived in a tent, rifle under the rock, pistol under your head, and you're moving about a country in very hostile and difficult environments. And so after living a life like that, or going to sea for upwards to 30 days, being deployed somewhere for upward to 30 days, and the days when I joined, it's easy now, and the days when I joined used to be deployed to places like Kisal, where we wanted to maintain a presence to avoid the Cubans coming in and taking it. We wanted to maintain a presence there because it's a very strategic, very important area for fishing in the Bahamas. And we kept a presence there for many, many years until recently, well, in my time, that was stopped. But you're deployed for a long time. You're deployed under sometimes very harsh conditions. And so the United States of America, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, none of them go beyond 25 years for a military person to vest in retirement. You know, our families serve along with us, even though they're not in the tents or on the rocks with us. We miss, and I say we, because I still feel I'm a part of the service, right? And that would never change with me. We miss very important times in the lives of our family. We miss times of graduations, birthdays, weddings, and all of those sentimental things that make a family what it is. And our wives, my wife Deidre, I want to take this opportunity and look into the camera and commend you, honey, for the job that you did with raising our 3 boys, sometimes on your own, whilst I was away doing my duties that I was called to do. I think you did a marvelous job, and so sometimes when I see them a bit closer to you and not to me, I'm not jealous. I feel some kind of way sometimes, but I'm very proud. but I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the notion that because you raised them, you know, and I was a mummy's boy too. So I understand that. So I'd like to see consideration for the 25 years. If you've done it, you've done it. When we come to office, we will change it. Right? No problem. No problem. Yeah, we will change that. We will change that. However long it takes, you know. Mr. Chairman, those are some of the remarks that I wanted to make. And you know, mentally it's difficult on families too. Mentally it's difficult on those deployed because, trust me, the officers and Marines that are in Haiti now, they are living under very harsh conditions. And I support them being there because I understand the strategic reasoning for us doing so. And I say this often in this place, politics stops at the border. The interest of the national interests and national security interests of the Bahamas should always be primal or most prime in all of our minds when we consider these things. We in the Bahamas have a vested interest in the peace and security of Haiti because we in the Bahamas suffer the brunt of failed governance in Haiti, where people get into boats and risk their lives and try to find a better way for them and their families. We empathize and sympathize with that, but we simply cannot take 12 million people from Haiti to come to the Bahamas and stay. You can come, but you have to do it the right way. So we have a strategic interest. But I implore the government to keep your eyes on the situation. Watch it day to day. I noticed, I think it may have been Trinidad or Barbados that withdrew its commitment and its troops, but we're still there. And so that's something that we have to watch. Now, one of the reasons we're doing this is because we were losing very well, as I said before, trained individuals. The Defense Force have people with qualifications. We have culinary chefs, believe it or not, because when you go to sea, one of the things that keep the morale high is a good meal, you know? So you need a chef who can cook. Sometimes it would be difficult for an officer to command a ship with morale and welfare with a bad cook. And I've seen some of those in my days, where we stood just outside the galley window, and we would I wouldn't call his name. We would allow him to see us, just putting the food overboard to feed the fish, right? Everybody in the Defense Force who was there at the time I was there, they know who I'm talking about. we love him, but he just could not cook, right? Particularly if the weather got a little bad. And so we have chefs, we have engineers, all kinds. We have hull engineers, mechanical engineers, qualified and trained, right? We have medics and nurses, and there was a doctor. I don't know if we have more doctors. We have lawyers, we have pilots, because we have an air wing that operates as well. You know, all of these people with all of these qualifications were being flushed out of the system at 55, where in a time where the life expectancy is now in the Bahamas probably about 75, right? Women are living longer than men. So the men's life expectancy and maybe 2022 was about 70, 72, 73, somewhere around there. And so we had to find a way to retain all of this talent, all of this experience. It is a mentorship in the military that is second to none. People in the military who join as recruits learn not only what they need to learn from the discipline, but they learn from the experience of their seniors. And so we take them under our wings as little brothers, and then eventually we got women Marines and little sisters, and we pass on the ethos, the work habits, the training, and what is expected from persons who would be a part of a disciplined force. And so in the early days, I could not see a Marine ashore or in town with an earring. I could not tolerance that. I could not see a Marine ashore with beard. Even though they did it in the United Kingdom, that was something that we did not wish to see. And so the bearing that you spoke about is a bearing that when someone looks at you, they should immediately recognize that this person has military bearing of some kind. This is a trained, disciplined person. I want to stop, so I wouldn't touch this. But I want to say, Minister Halkitis, that there is still the issue of the pension that has not been settled. And the problem, as I understand it, as I was advised, is that the public service who calculated the pension, for those who, they may be doing it correctly now, but in the early days they did it incorrectly. The salary and emoluments should have been calculated as a part of the pay packet, along with the added qualifications. All of those people that I named, the doctors, the lawyers, the chefs, the engineers, they got what we call an added qualification pay, along with a uniform allowance. All of that, if you read the regulations properly, amounts to your pay. And your pay at the end of the day is what your pension and gratuity ought to have been calculated based on. Not your base pay, but all of the other added qualifications pay. And that is the issue that we have. And there are about, my understanding is that there are about 200 of us, I'm one of them, who retired without the benefit of the, you know, the government's been good to me. You trained me, gave me a lot of schooling, right? There are about 200 of us who have not had the benefit of the proper calculation. And I heard the minister say that there were only 3. I don't know where he got that from. He indicated that there may have been only the Commodore. I was trying to sit down without being, you know, disruptive today. The kids are gone now, right? The minister also says that we didn't recruit anybody. And I find that odious, because you simply need to consult the file and see that during our administration we recruited in 1980, not 1980, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And you may have found some training in 2021 when you went there, I'm not sure, even though there was this issue with COVID. So with those few words, I believe that's all I wanted to say about the Defense Force, and I commend this bill. I commend the amendment to this bill. I'm very proud to be here as a former member, a former senior officer of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, a lieutenant commander, and doing what I'm able to do in this place on this day. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Henfield, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I rise today in esteem chambers, honored once again to stand before this august body. To speak on matters of national importance, I fully recognize the importance and the immense responsibility we bear as lawmakers, entrusted with shaping the policies that safeguard the strength, security, and future of our beloved Bahamas. Madam President, before I turn to the business of today, I want to take a moment to recognize a recent event that was held in Kalani constituency on the 21st of April, 2025. I'm pleased to report that Gambia Village came alive with an electrifying display of skill, talent, and excellence displayed by the Royal Bahamas Police Force. You know, they held their mini tattoo honoring their 185th anniversary. So I had the distinct pleasure attending this remarkable event alongside the mentees and executives of the Next Gen program, along with my fellow neighbors within the constituency of Kalani. And the Royal Bahamas Police Force Band and the Herbal Renewal Band delivered a world-class performance, setting the stage for the evening that captivated both the young and the old. From their breathtaking displays of the K9 unit, fire services, and I must say to you, the motorcycle unit had the crowd in an uproar, displaying an amazing displays of controlling that motorcycle and working as one unit. So I truly want to let you know, if you've never had the chance to see the cycle unit of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, or you've missed something in action. Amazing, amazing, talented people, and how they have this bike, like it's a part of them. I'm talking about not only male cyclists, female cyclists, holding down that machine. The evening was I tell you, was so exciting, but the highlight for us was when we had the opportunity to recognize Mr. Reno Stubbs, who's been dedicated with assisting the Gambia Village community. He's done so many community outreach, cleanup campaigns. He seems to be the glue of the Gambia Village, and it was really a touching moment whereby Deputy Commissioner Anthony Roll brought the team up, and I was privileged to be asked to stand up, and he publicly commended him for the work he's done in the community, helping the young boys. And I want this chamber, by tapping on the table, thanking him for his efforts, what he's done in the community. Madam President, events like these, remind us why we fight so passionately for security and progress of the nation. They reinforce the importance of a strong, capable, and well-equipped force, not just in policing our streets, but forging stronger bonds with the communities they serve. It's in this same spirit of dedication that I turn my attention to Defense Amendment Bill 2025. And this bill is a piece of legislation that ensures that our Royal Bahamas Defense Force remains steadfast, experienced, and ready to meet the challenges ahead. And Madam President, I want to speak about the utmost importance of this bill, because we understand that while this bill seeks to amend the existing province, along with the engagement of retired Marines for the Royal Bahamas Defense Force until the age of 60, such amendment to me is not merely an administrative change. It's a tactical initiative, in my opinion, aimed at bolstering our national defense by retaining seasoned professionals whose experience, as you've heard from a former Marine, is definitely invaluable. You can't put a price tag on the experience, Senator, you have earned being a part of that defense force. So why would we just discard that because of a number? I believe that transferable institutional knowledge is of key value and could truly be an asset to any organization, because the men and women of the Defense Force have dedicated most of their adult life to serve our country, embodying the highest virtues of integrity, honor, and a firm patriotism. Their extensive training and years of service has equipped them with unparalleled expertise in maritime defense, border protection, and crisis response. So to compel these dedicated individuals to retire at the peak of their proficiency is to deprive our nation with a critical asset in our defense arsenal. Our nation faces multifaceted security challenges, from including persistent threats of illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. The Bahamas, with its multifaceted marine borders, is particularly vulnerable to these unlawful activities. But the engagement of experienced Marines ensure that we maintain a strong and vibrant defense posture capable of defending and efficiently to deal with these type of threats. Seasoned Marines, seasoned judgment, and operational knowledges are indispensable in orchestrating complex boundaries and rescue operations that protects our citizens and upholds the rule of law. The proposed amendment aligns with practices that are observed in other Caribbean nations, where the retention of experienced military personnel has proven to be very beneficial. For instance, the Jamaica Defense Force has implemented policies that allow for the extension of service of its members, recognizing the value of their experiences that enhances their operational effectiveness. Similarly, in Barbados, Defense Force employs a phased retirement approach, enabling the gradual transition of seasoned officers into advisory and training roles, therefore preserving their institutional knowledge and strengthening the overall capacity of the force. Madam President, the economic implication of this amendment are also noteworthy. The recruitment and training of new Marines entails significant financial investment and time. But by retraining seasoned personnel, we not only conserve resources, but also ensure continuity in leadership and operational readiness. Moreover, these veterans serve as mentors to younger recruits, fostering a culture of excellence and dedication within the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. You know, we understand in any business unit, while you can teach them about the systems and you can train them, most of the learning comes through observation. And you can't get experience if you're a new guy on the block. And it's very important for any type of business, whether it's in the government, it's in law, you must have a seasoned professional on the war front, ready to give consultation when it needs to happen. I remember you, Senator Enfield, talked about when you are on the vessel and sometimes what happens if the system shuts down? All the computers shuts down, the map, how do you now able to navigate this vessel from one point to the next? If there isn't a seasoned person, right, all right. So if there isn't a seasoned person, a part of the team, how are we going to deal with these unseen challenges that come before us? So it's imperative, Madam President, that we ensure that this proposed amendment is in alignment with the best practices that are observed around our counterparts within the Caribbean. All right? It's very important. Our national faces, you know, it's just one of those things that we have to understand that it's so hard for us not to take this amendment very seriously. You recall what it is that we have to do when we have to be the institution that deals with these unseen forces. And I remembered going to even see our good friend, Senator Raming, when he became the high office within the church. He had the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to take this appointment, I'm going to be head of the church. But he recognized the value in having his lead pastor there with him, to be with him while he's in office. It shows you that no matter how much you choose to have the knowledge within the organization, and you recognize that someone is there to assist you, why not be smart individuals, wait our turn, and seek counsel of someone who's already there? because we have to understand that it takes leadership, it takes going through something, it allows you to have someone to counsel you along this thing that you have to do. So the welfare of our citizens is fundamentally linked to the strength and the readiness of our defense forces. The men and women of the defense force are not trained to be passive observers. They are conditioned to be proactive protectors for our nation's interest. Their commitment to duty extends beyond personal consideration, reflecting a profound dedication to the collective well-being of our society. By facilitating their continued service, we honor their service and reaffirm our commitment to national security. The issue of border protection is a paramount importance, particularly considering the challenges fostered by illegal immigrants. Madam President, unauthorized entry into our country not only strains our resources, but also poses potential security risk. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force plays a critical role in monitoring and securing our borders, preventing unauthorized access and ensuring that immigration processes are conducted lawfully and orderly. So the re-engagement of experienced Marines enhances our border security capabilities, enabling more effective surveillance, interception, and deterrence of illegal activities. Now, some may question the financial implications. The potential impact of new recruits, or whether extending the service until 60 years of age is a practical or more or less doesn't make sense in a physically demanding role. So to these concerns, I want to just share the following. First, the cost of training and onboarding a new recruit far exceeds the cost of retaining an experienced personnel who is already being trained, disciplined, and is capable immediately to be a part of the battle if it ever happens. Secondly, the re-engagement does not mean blocking any younger recruits. So when I say that point again, re-engaging does not mean you are blocking anyone who has the potential to be in leadership. Instead, it creates a balanced force where knowledge is transferred, mentorship thrives, and institutional strength is maintained. Thirdly, the concerns about physical readiness have been carefully considered. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force already operates under stringent fitness requirements. Fitness, every year, all right? So there's no, you get your re-engagement and there's a pass, all right? So re-engaged personnel will be subject to the same high standards. There's no concession when you're being re-engaged, all right? So engaging those who are continue to serve, they are fully capable. And my last point is, we must acknowledge that in this modern defense strategy, it's not based solely on physical endurance, but on expertise, strategy, and intelligence, qualities that seasoned officers possess in abundance. This bill is about preserving expertise, enhancing national security, and making calculated use of our finest defenders to protect our borders and uphold law and order. So, Madam President, in considering this amendment, we must also reflect on the broader implications of regional stability. The Caribbean is a mosaic of nations, each facing unique, interconnected security challenges. So by strengthening our defense forces through the retention of experienced personnel, the Bahamas contributes to the collective security of the region. Collective efforts, intelligence sharing, and joint operations are enhanced. So when member states possesses robust and capable defense forces, our protective stance serves as a model for regional cooperation and underscore our commitment to maintaining peace and stability within the Caribbean. So the proposed amendment is not merely a policy change. It is a testament of our administration's recognition of the invaluable contributions made by our service officers. It acknowledges the experiences that cannot be replicated overnight, and that the wisdom gained through years of dedicated services is an asset that we cannot afford just to squander. So by allowing our Marines to continue to serve until the age of 60, we harness their experience, leadership, and steadfast commitment to our nation. So this is just another amendment. This is a declaration by this administration that there will be no compromise on the security of the Bahamas, that there will never be a link or weakening in our shield that guards us as a people, that we will never dismiss the sacrifice of those who have stood firm, like Senator Henfield, between danger and our shores, foreign and domestic. This is a moment of decision, a moment where we as leaders must ask ourselves, do we stand idly by and watch our defenses weaken? Or do we stand up and strengthen our forces and ensure that those who have dedicated their lives to service continue to defend this nation? Make no mistakes, our enemy are watching. The smugglers, the traffickers, the criminals who seek to exploit our waters and breach our borders are waiting for our misstep. We cannot afford to give them an opening. We cannot afford to lose seasoned warriors who have spent decades mastering the art of defense, maritime strategy, and border protection. This bill is about fortifying our defenses. It is about retaining our most experienced fighters. It is about preserving knowledge, discipline, and leadership that can only come from years of dedicated service in the field. We must not fail them. We must not fail our country. Madam President, the decision we make today is not about politics. It's about patriotism. It's about ensuring that the Bahamas is protected, prepared, and powerful. It's about standing for strength over weakness, security over uncertainty, and leadership over complacency. Today, I call on every member in this honorable chamber to rise, encourage, and vote with conviction. Let us pass this Defense Amendment Bill 2025 and send a clear message to our people and to the world that the Bahamas will stand strong, the Bahamas will defend itself, and the Bahamas will never turn its back on those who have defended this land. To this end, I support the passing of the Defense Amendment Bill 2025.
Thank you, Senator Duncombe, for your contribution. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
I think it's still morning. Afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam President. Once again, I am truly honored to be standing on my feet today to contribute to this, the Defense Amendment Bill 2025. I am truly thankful to Almighty God today for blessing me with a wonderful wife, good children and grandchildren, and for planting me in the best country in the world. Again, I thank the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, Casey, for this opportunity to serve this government. Madam President, too, with your leave, I wish to extend happy birthday wishes to both grandmama and grandfather. As well as in their absence to just say how pleased I was to see the young people here this morning from QC. Sound like they were about to have a revival here this morning. It's amazing when you hear young people pray what it does to you. Also, I wish to extend condolences to Ms. Sandra Smith on the passing of her daughter, Glendina Ferguson. Condolences is also extended to the husband of Ms. Ferguson, Mr. Eugene Ferguson, and their 3 children. Madam President, the Defense Bill, which seeks to amend the Defense Act by moving the retirement age from 30 years of service to basically 60 years, is indeed positive for this country. You know, as a government, we invest so much into our defense force, our officers, and educating and training these officers, these Marine officers. And just to have them retire at such a young age does not put the Royal Bahamas Defense Force in the strongest position. You know, these brave soldiers are mandated to defend the Bahamas, protect the territorial integrity of this country, patrol the waters, provide critical assistance in times of disaster, maintain order in conjunction with law and order and law enforcement agencies of the country, and carry out any such duties as determined by the National Security Council. This is a serious mandate. But before I move on, I know my colleague would have called the names of Fenric Sturp, Austin Smith, David Tucker, and Edward Williams. You know, but personally, I can't speak about the Defense Force unless I recognize those four gentlemen who were killed on the Flamingo attack, which was captained by Amos Roller, I think. Before I move on, let me just say this to our young people. When you talk about integrity, when you talk about a commitment to country, you don't see a better example than what took place on May 10th, 1980 by the Pick Stop. And I tell you why. That boat sank. Those fellas caught a ride on one fishing boat, I understand, right? Or seconded on fishing boat, whatever you want to call it, right? But while they were being attacked by those MiG jets, going into Duncantown, and what was incredible was the fact that they didn't lose their prisoners. Through all of that, they were able to keep those men arrested, swimming for their lives, hiding for their life in Duncantown. But they were able to walk each one of those poachers before the court and have them charged. If you don't understand what integrity and love of country is, on May 10th, understand what those other 15 soldiers did, that was evil. And so, and I just mentioned that because we always talk about the 4, but Captain Amos Roll and the other 15 who survived and was fighting for their life whilst bullets was coming from there, held on to their prisoners, brought them to shore, and took them before the court. And that story must always be told. I also want to mention our Senate colleague. He would have mentioned himself a few minutes ago, Senator Henfield, but the Bible tells us if you give a testimony about yourself, sometimes it's not true, but if others give the testimony, then then it is true. And so I just want to recognize our Senator, the Honorable Darren Henfield, who served this country well in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, attaining the rank of Commander. Thank you for your service. Madam President, while I'm on the subject, please permit me a few minutes to talk about the Herculean efforts of the distinguished Grand Bahama firefighters and volunteers, who included Defense Force officers, who fought both the East Grand Bahama wildfire a few weeks ago and last Friday, the Central Freeport wildfire, the Pine Ridge areas, just last Friday. Madam President, I do not wish to reflect on the challenges we face. Rather, I want to celebrate the heroes. I'm talking about the extraordinary firefighters, defense officers, police officers, and volunteers who charge into the heart of the flames, risking their lives to protect ours. All I can say is thank you. Madam President, those massive wild bushfires, while putting people, homes, and businesses at risk, tested our island's strength and resilience. Still, in the face of destruction and danger, the Bahamian people witnessed unparalleled bravery, dedication, teamwork, and most importantly, love of neighbor. We saw the best of what it is to be Bahamian. You know, while I was busy getting in the way and driving around the communities where the fires were, with my little garden hose, you know.
That's good. Everybody have
I came across this young man. I think that was Bishop Williams, Godfrey Williams' son. And I said to him, hey, he was just standing by his truck next to a home where the fire had surrounded, but it was extinguished. And I said to him, man, how your house? He said to me, I don't live here. He said, I was just here bringing extra hoses to help one of my friends, and then I realized his neighbors then had no hose, so I dashed home to just get some hose and help them fight the fire. That was the kind of scenario throughout Grand Bahama for the entire last week Friday. Please allow me to recognize the following individuals. I want to recognize Assistant Commissioner of Police Alvaro Dames, the officer in charge of Grand Bahama Bimini Abaco, who, along with his top brass team, never left the scene of the wildfires. I want to recognize ACP Javon Richards, officer in charge of the Grand Bahama Fire Branch, and his awesome team of firefighters, Commander Valentino Rule, of the officer in charge of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and his awesome team who assisted fighting the wildfire, controlling traffic, doing whatever was necessary. I want to recognize the awesome airport firefighters and the BOCO firefighters who gave all that they had to protect people, property, and business. Madam President, I want to recognize some awesome volunteer businessmen and women who assisted in the wildfire. People like Shaholin Rule, owner of B&B Galaxy Waste Management Services. People like Mr. Kimuel and Ms. Audrey Williams, owners of ASSK Trucking and Maintenance. Mr. Abel Cooper, owner of Triple L Trucking. Mr. Andrew Gator, heavy-duty equipment operator. Mr. Franco Miller, heavy-duty equipment operator and owner. Mr. Steve Lang, heavy-duty equipment operator. These men and women jumped in and used their super water trucks and heavy-duty equipment
to service the fire trucks with water, allowing the fire trucks to remain on the scene of the fires while they run back and forth to the hydrants for water. Let me explain what I'm talking about. You have Bohemia, North, Regency, Hawksbill, and Sunrise, 4 areas, massive areas, hundreds of homes in the midst, under fire. You have about four fire trucks at these fires. So the trucks only have a limited amount of water. So they would have to move and go to the fire hydrants, refill, and come back. What these guys did, no one asked them, just recognizing the devastation that we were in. You know, they have these huge water trucks that pump waters and different things. What they agreed to do was they went to the fire hydrants, get the water, so the fire trucks could remain on the fire. They would pull up alongside the fire trucks, have the fire trucks drop their hose in their tank, and then they would fill the fire trucks back while the trucks were able to fight the fire. And they didn't ask for anything. These fellas were not trained. They put their truck, their equipment that they use to make money for them and their family at risk. But without those water truck drivers, the result for some of those homeowners may have not been as it ended up being. And so I want to say thank you to those water truck drivers. I consider all of them heroes. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the government local agencies, and in particularly the Urban Renewal Authority and the Ministry for Grand Bahama, as well as Social Services. Madam President, I have been in Francis, Jane, Wilma, Matthew, and Dorian in the shelters, waiting those hurricanes. And I could tell you, I have never seen anything like those wildfires. You see, at least you could plan 2 days out of 48 hours out of 72 hours out when the hurricane is coming and get the shelters ready. But those wildfires, I've never seen and experienced anything like it. And so one could only imagine what those residents were going through, what was going through their minds. And so understanding the scope of the devastation caused by the fires and the smoke, we decided that families should not have to worry about a hot meal the following morning. What they're going to do, how they're going to get some help, how they're going to get started, how they're going to start their day. Because, you know, we had to move families into hotels. People couldn't stay, people couldn't sleep because, you know, everyone was trying to protect their home. And so it was a nightmare. And so teams led by the Honorable Ginger Moxie and myself decided that residents should have a hot meal. And I want to say thank the staff at Urban. By 8 o'clock the following morning, we had 500 breakfasts on the streets to serve those residents. That wasn't the thing. We called the hotels for assistance. Chef Claire, Dwayne Claire, at Grand Lacaille Hotel, said to me, by 11 o'clock Saturday, I will have 600 well-prepared lunches to distribute to families. The general manager at Club Fortuna said to me, I'll have 400 lunches for you the following day, ready to distribute to the family. And so by the time the Prime Minister reached on Saturday to do his assessment, they were able to assist with the distribution of food, and we were able to distribute some 1,500 meals to those affected families by midday. I think on the distribution line, I think Senator Randy was there and Senator Turner was also there distributing food to those individuals. And then I want to thank the minister because over the last several days, in partnership with the Collab unit at the Ministry of Grand Bahama with Urban, we have been distributing cleaning products for those residents. I want to say this, Madam President. It's going to be very, very crucial. In the midst of that fire, you found that very, very few Bahamians in their homes had like fire extinguishers. This is something we have to look at as a countryman. Very few persons even had garden hoses at their homes. And so these are basic things that are necessity, safety items that we have to train our people to ensure that they have possession of, because you never know what could simply happen. And I am not talking these points to brag or to say anything, but simply to say that when people come together, in a disaster, and I know Abaco, as I call him sometime, or Soldier, Senator Henfield, he could tell you that during Dorian, the same experience we experienced during the fire, that when communities come together and put their resources together when there is a disaster, that is worth more than anything money could buy. And so that is the reason I am talking about this. And then I want to talk about Ms. Jody Burrows and the team down at Social Services. Social Services always gets a lot of flack here and there, but those ladies and gentlemen down there, they work extremely hard. And the team down there is led by Ms. Jody Burrows. And they were up for 2 days ensuring that rooms were ready in case the children home who was also affected needed to be evacuated, if residents needed hotel rooms. And so they worked nonstop and are still working today to ensure that residents who are affected are able to find relief, whether it be food relief, whether it be temporary shelter relief at a hotel, or whether it be assisting them with finding other locations. Because I tell you what, I had a young lady who came to my office about 2 days ago, and she lived in an apartment, but the apartment is now unlivable, not so much because of fire. The heat from the fire broke the windows, and the smoke that came into the apartment is totally destroyed by smoke, or has to undergo some, the apartment owner has to go through some serious repair work to get that apartment ready. So she needed somewhere to live. And so it was not just homeowners. That area is also, that's a heavy apartment zone area in Bahamia. And so those persons now find themselves without somewhere to live. And so Ms. Jody Burrows and the Department of Social Services is doing a remarkable job with assisting those residents down there in Grand Bahama. Madam President, because of the commitment of our firefighters, volunteers, homeowners themselves, and our employees, homes were saved, lives were protected, and the spirit of the residents remained unbroken. Grand Bahama is indeed the island of resilience, and I encourage all and sundry to carry forward, upward, and onward the example that they displayed during the devastation of the fires, and love of neighbor, unity and service to others as they carry on and continue to recover, rebuild, and revolutionize Grand Bahama. Madam President, I want to just take a minute to congratulate Minister Keith Bell and the Ministry of Housing, as well as Minister of State Lisa Raming, for the stellar work they continue to do in the Ministry of Housing. And just Friday, the housing team, accompanied by the Prime Minister, gave out 6 keys to family in Spring City, Abaco, and 6 family in Central Pines, who are now proud homeowners. Prime Minister opined at that ceremony, and I quote, "We are building a Bahamas where diligence and perseverance are rewarded, a Bahamas where if you make the right choices and work hard, home ownership and upward mobility are within reach." Then there was the Selinden Pinland subdivision a week ago, where 6 rent-to-own keys were issued, the first of its kind, and 6 homeowners received home. Madam President, before I take my seat, I want to just thank the Executive Chairman of the Consumer Affairs, Senator the Honorable Randy Rule, for coming to Grand Bahama and ensuring that the new VAT rates were successfully implemented and ensuring that the stores and homeowners did what they supposed to do on April 1st. So thank you, Senator Rule, for your stellar efforts. Yes, of course. Another compassionate relief movement. You know, Madam President, just on that, let me say that I wish I had all the names of the firefighters. I have them from the police department, but there were firefighters from Boco, Bahamas Oil Refinery Company, and of course, there were some courageous and well-trained firefighters from the airport department, and I don't have their names. And so, again, of course, you know, we have communities in this country and islands in this country where we have the fire trucks or the fire services. I wouldn't say the fire department, but the fire services are manned by volunteers. And so it's important for us as communities, as island, to do all that we can in these regards to assist the government in these measures. And on that, Madam President, I just want to say that I support the Defense Amendment bill. May God continue to bless this government. May God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, for your contribution. As many, just before Senator Halkitis does the wrap-up, I too would like to lend happy birthday to Miss Irene Major, who hails from Palmetto Point, Eleuthera, and she's also a member of the Rhodes Memorial Methodist Church. I'd like to wish her a happy 95th birthday, and also a happy 90th birthday to Bishop Clifford Henfield of Dundas Town, Abaco, on Grace Avenue. So it's a pleasure to wish him and extend to him a happy 90th birthday. And to both of them, may God continue to bless them with long life. And we thank them for their contributions to the Bahamas and the 2 stellar senators that they have presented to this upper chamber. May God bless them all. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just for a brief wrap-up, Madam President. And before I begin, Madam President, we also have the amendment to the automatic exchange of account information bill, which is very short. I anticipate it to be very short, but since we're approaching 1 o'clock, I would just like to move now that I've moved that the business of the Senate do sit beyond the 1 p.m. hour, and we anticipate that we should be done in about less than an hour. So I
Se-
move, Madam President, the business of the Senate do sit beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
It's been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate chamber sit beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many hours in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The business of the Senate will sit beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, just thank you. I thank all colleagues for their comments, for their contributions to the bill. I, first of all, would just to attach myself to all of the comments and sentiments expressed by Senator Russell in commending all of the brave firefighters and volunteers and all of those who contributed during and in the aftermath of fighting those wildfires, inclusive of the firefighters and all of those who assisted and gave of their time and resources in support. Madam President, I thank colleagues for their contributions to the bill, and I just want to address 2 points raised by Senator Henfield, the first being his observation that in many jurisdictions, individuals are vested after 25 years. That is taken into account the rigor of that the individuals in the security forces have to undergo being deployed, etc., and sometimes at very rough circumstances. And that is, we take note of that suggestion, and so his suggestion is instead of 30 years to vest, 25. So that is a point that that is a point to consider, and we take that under advisement for further consideration, Madam President. It has merit to it.
Thank you.
And the second is the point about the pension and the allowances, the technical allowances and other allowances that are members of the force would have earned during their active duty, I would say, are not being taken into the calculation of the pension. I can say that, on my way here, I know this is an issue that has been long-standing, and we have agreed to do it. I'm advised by the Minister of National Security that the matter has been agreed, whereby the technical allowances and other allowances, other than uniform allowances, other allowances will be included in the calculation of the pension. I'm advised that the matter has been forwarded from the Ministry of National Security to the Department of Public Service, who is now doing the calculations and finalizing. And so we undertake to ensure that to accelerate the process as best we can, so there's no further delay, so that those 200 members, former members who have served and earned, can have the benefit of it.
Thank you
so
very
you
much,
have that undertaking for us. And so, Madam President, with those few remarks, I just want to move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Defense Act.
Second. Moved and seconded.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Defense Act. As many hours in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Defense Act.
For the second reading of bills, Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Yes, Madam President. Thank you for recognizing me. Madam President, I rise to move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act. Madam President, you're aware of the Bahamas' commitment to implement the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD's Common Reporting Standard, the CRS, in relation to the automatic exchange of financial account information. This commitment not only requires that the Bahamas implement an international standard, but also requires the Bahamas to address any shortfalls that exist in its regulatory framework. Last year, the Bahamas' legislative framework was assessed by the OECD, and a deficiency was identified. More specifically, the Bahamas' legislative framework has an anti-circumvention rule that does not cover all relevant persons that might engage in practices to avoid due diligence and reporting. In effect, Madam President, the rules in the Bahamas' legislative framework to prevent the adoption of practices intended to circumvent the reporting and due diligence procedures are insufficient in scope. Madam President, the anti-circumvention rule being insufficient in scope is a relatively common issue, and a number of jurisdictions had to make amendments to their legislative framework to reflect the correct language in the automatic exchange of information standard. However, as the Bahamas is currently undergoing the second round of effectiveness review by the OECD's Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes, it is important for the Bahamas to adopt the correct wording. Madam President, the Bahamas' regulatory regime, inclusive of its legislative framework, will be assessed, and for the Bahamas' regime to be considered an effective monitoring regime, the rules in our legislative framework to prevent the adoption of practices intended to circumvent or get around the reporting and due diligence should be in line with the standard. In other words, this is a key element of the required enforcement framework and is therefore material to the proper functioning of the standard. In addition, Madam President, for readers to have a full understanding and appreciation of the Act and standard, it is important that the anti-avoidance or anti-circumvention provision reflects the correct wording in the standard, and the anti-avoidance rule cannot be partial in scope. And so, the automatic exchange of information standard requires the competent authority to be aware of a scheme to avoid or circumvent the common reporting standard, and the standard requires the competent authority to have the power to ensure that in the event of an anti-avoidance scheme or through unwinding or ignoring the circumvention, the financial account information will be reported and exchanged by the reporting financial institution as if the circumvention had not taken place or in a manner that would be required in the absence of the circumvention. And so, if you're aware that there's a scheme to avoid due diligence, you have to do the reporting as if that scheme, once you discover that scheme, did not exist. In addition to, Madam President, being scrutinized, for want of a better term, by the OECD, we also are under scrutiny by the European Union, the EU. And so any shortfall, as indicated by the OECD, has implications for the European Union and its list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. Madam President, just quite briefly, the following changes reflected in the automatic exchange of financial account information bill. The deletion of section 15.1 in its entirety, subsection 1, and the insertion of a new subsection 1. The deletion of the words issue guidelines in section 10.1a and substituting therefore the words issue CRS guidelines. The insertion of the new term connected person and its accompanying definition in section 2.1, and the insertion of the words in writing by notice in section 15a. Madam President, the aforementioned amendments might come across as small or minor, but make no mistake about it, they have a significant impact on the legislative framework. And although the legislative amendments were made last year to the Automatic Exchange of Information Act, it is our duty to ensure that our regulatory regime remains robust, and hence these continued amendments, and remains in line with the common reporting standard for the automatic exchange of financial account information. Further, Madam President, we are under an obligation to address any and all existing deficiencies as identified and any gaps in our domestic legislation. And as you are aware, Madam President, a strong legal framework provides the foundation for a comprehensive and effective regime, a regime which prevents the circumvention of reporting obligations by individuals or reporting financial institutions. As it stands, there's a noticeable gap in Section 15.1, which has been identified and calls for changes to close the gap, which we are doing. Madam President, the Bahamas is undergoing an OECD Common Reporting Standard automatic exchange of financial account information assessment this year. It's 2025, and we have to demonstrate to the assessors and its peers, meaning other jurisdictions, that we have an effective compliance strategy. If the legislation falls short of the standard with respect to circumvention of the standard, Madam President, then it goes without saying that we would not be looked upon favorably, and the determination might be made that we do not have an effective regime in place. Madam President, we must always bear in mind that the Bahamas remains under scrutiny by the EU. The movements made by the Bahamas with respect to the common standard will be relayed to the European Union, and the EU will take in account the changes made or not made to the legislation and the effectiveness of our compliance regime. We are taking all necessary steps to remain off any list of non-cooperative jurisdictions, and we have to and we should continually demonstrate its adherence to the common reporting standard. Further, Madam President, with the addition of a new term and words in the Act, the reader would gain better understanding of what the Act is trying to achieve and also prevent. Madam President, through the aforementioned amendments, the Bahamas' legal framework with respect to implementation of the standard will continue to be assessed as, quote, in place. We recognize that there will always be room for improvement, and as we know, the goalposts continue to shift and change, and standards evolve. Madam President, in the midst of an evolving standard, the Bahamas must remain resolute in its willingness to meet and adhere to international standards, which will allow the Bahamas to cooperate with its exchange partners, enable us to continue to have a viable financial services jurisdiction, be on equal footing with competing jurisdictions, and maintain our standing as a leading financial center. And so with those few words, Madam President, thank you very much, and I move for the second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the automatic exchange of account information bill.
Thank you, Senator Halkitis. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable J.Ann Major.
Madam President, I rise again today to support and offer my brief contribution to the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Bill of 2025, a crucial step in the Bahamas' continued efforts to align with international tax transparency standards. This bill enhances our compliance with the OECD's common reporting standards, ensuring that the Bahamas remains a respected global financial jurisdiction. Madam President, the Bahamas has long been recognized as a premier financial services hub, owing to our regulatory framework, industry expertise, and commitment to best practices. This bill is a testament to our nation's proactive stance in addressing global regulatory demands while maintaining our competitiveness. Madam President, key recommendations from the OECD's 2018 peer review report for the Bahamas have guided these recent amendments, ensuring that the Bahamas remains at the forefront of financial integrity and transparency. This bill signals to international partners that the Bahamas is unwavering in its commitment to sound financial governance. Some of the key features of the 2025 bill include the expanded definition of connected persons to include individuals or entities with at least 10% beneficial ownership in an investment fund. It also captures entities controlled by such individuals or companies, requiring directors and officers of these entities to provide financial account information upon request. The bill also extends anti-avoidance provisions to any person attempting to circumvent CRS obligations. Reporting financial institutions and relevant persons must disclose all pertinent financial details, including previously concealed information, to ensure comprehensive compliance. Finally, the bill empowers the Ministry of Finance to issue CRS guidelines to align with evolving global standards, ensuring flexibility and, again, continued compliance. Madam President, this bill is significant in maintaining international compliance, avoiding blacklisting, and the Bahamas being designated as a non-cooperative jurisdiction by the EU and the OECD. And it helps to preserve the integrity of our financial services sector because, as we all know, a well-regulated financial services sector reinforces investor confidence and strengthens the Bahamas' global reputation as a responsible and competitive financial center. Madam President, this automatic exchange of financial account information amendment bill of 2025 is a necessary and strategic measure to ensure the Bahamas remains a well-regulated, compliant, and attractive financial jurisdiction. By strengthening anti-avoidance provisions, expanding the definition of connected persons, and empowering the Ministry of Finance, this bill enhances our nation's financial integrity and ensures alignment with international best practices. I commend the Ministry of Finance, the AG's office, and the Ministry of Economic Affairs for all of its work in advancing these important legislative amendments. Madam President, the Bahamas must continue to lead by example in the global financial arena. And with that being said, I fully support this bill, and I hope that my fellow senators do the same. Thank you, Madam President.
Absolutely. Scrummy day. Good for the day.
Thank you, Senator Honorable J.N. Major. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. No. That was it. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming.
Thank you, Madam President. Whenever I come across, Madam President, legislation like this, it brings to mind the saying is the best of times and it's the worst of times, and I tend to add a thought to it as to for who, because
Time to try men's.
when it comes to the OECD and the EU, it always, how they say, wax up my vexation as it relates to them. And sad to say, but honestly so, I find myself at a deficit to try to find any good thing to say. But when it comes down to unfairness, well, I was going to say there's no other bodies, but when I look around at other bodies around the world, I find them to be almost groups of cartels who uses their economic might to constrain and subjugate small island developing nations who set rules that when you look at them and in their exclusive jurisdictions, is blatantly hypocritical. We find countries who complain so much about uh, democracy and fair play and even fair trade and all these things, carve out massive loopholes and operate with impunity even when they themselves breach the very rules in which they, at a flippant whim, will hold nations such as the Bahamas accountable. And there's not much we can do because they own and control the systems that we depend on, and it is a blockade. And despite those organizations that are supposed to be so altruistic and supportive of human rights and national sovereignty, we still find out that at the end of the day, they're only tools to further the interests of the big bullies around the world. And as much as we need them, it doesn't change the fact that they are wrong, it is inappropriate, it is bullying, and it misrepresents the image of themselves that they try to tout around the world. And so you'll find no argument with this bill, but I will support it with my usual suck teeth because it is pathetic. Our second largest industry is the financial services sector. We had been pioneers in the financial services sector. Historically, the Bahamas has been. And because of these same rules and these things that are plunged upon us, we found that other jurisdictions that have the ability to withstand these forced impositions have begun to outpace us on things that we started, we invented for our benefit. So, quite frankly and bluntly, I still cry shame on them, even though we still have to do this. We even see the abuse even in the Ukraine war, because there have always been things that stand strong even in war. Regardless of what's happening in war, you don't touch the money. But we've seen how under the former administration in the U.S., where they used the SWIFT mechanism as an act of, what they call it, when they put the sanctions on Russia. And, it's not about whether we support Russia or not, but the SWIFT is a system that should have always remained untouchable because that's just simply the way the world moves currency. And like any other market, when you decide that you could tap into certain things that are sacred, you create fear and distrust. And at the end of the day, we saw how that ended up strengthening a greater enemy of the U.S., which is China, which allowed Russia to operate under their financial system and across the board. So in abusing the untouchable, they drove an enemy to partner with a greater enemy, and it has caused more problems with them. But unfortunately, us being a small archipelagical nation, we would dream of a time when there would be 1 million persons, but under 500,000 people, we find ourselves so subjugated to this. I think I can say for all of us, we don't support it. We do this at gunpoint. We do this at gunpoint. I think it's reasonable to say, really, it is almost economic terrorism to us. Because you could go in Delaware, right in the heart of the United States, and you'll find out that all these things that should apply to them don't apply. Go to certain places in the Cayman and certain other places. You see, Cayman is a small place, but you see, that's where all the big boys send their money to. So they say, don't touch my own, but they want to hamstring the Bahamas. But we do what we need to do, as any government has to, for its people to survive, and to just survive until there's a break in the storm or a time where we can fight again. And I do believe that the time will come when the Bahamas will continue to grow and rise. It may not be in my lifetime, but I believe the blessing of God is on our Commonwealth. I believe that God has strategically positioned us in the world geographically. I believe that the reports of NASA and their satellite review of Earth from space acknowledge the beauty of the Bahamas and recognize it as the most beautiful place on earth. And I believe that as we invest more in our Bahamian people and the brains that we have, and respect the fact that the world is marking the manner of our bearing in terms of the Rhodes Scholars, the Bahamians who are now in charge of municipalities throughout the United States, who are doing well in the highest echelons of sports around the world, and who are serving in law enforcement in the highest level in these different places, that the time will come that when our people migrate back home, that we will have the ability to even transcend where we are. And I pray that even if it's the time that I look down from the windows of heaven, if God would tarry, to be able to see that our nation will become what I believe all of us in here dream we have the capacity to be. And I thank God for that. But again, like I say, and I say this in a colloquial way so people can understand, I suck my teeth with this thing we need to do. Madam President, with that, I also want to touch base with a couple other matters that I think is consistent with this as well. Because even recently, we saw how the U.S. president would have imposed, I cannot say at the Bahamas, because the 10% tariff was a blanket tariff that impacted the Bahamas. You know, but I still look at this in itself, and I don't fault any government for looking out for their self-interest. But when you look at the rhetoric and the definition and explanations and the reasoning behind the acts of President Trump, which I offer no condemnation or praise for in any event, that's his country, you do what you need to do for your country. But I want to use his own words and to encourage us as a government, if we have not done it already, to seek ways to have this 10% neutralized or removed or rescinded as it relates to the Bahamas, because it contradicts everything that is being said, because the Bahamas is not necessarily involved in this game. You know, first of all, when we look at it, you know, this thing in the U.S. was sparked mainly as a result of what the U.S. president termed to be, and rightly so, a trade deficit. And I could look at the statistics and I can see where that has happened in the U.S. as it relates to major places. I've studied what it was in Canada, 75% versus 2% in terms of the exchange of goods. So there exists a trade deficit. And the trade deficit, just for the Bahamian people to appreciate, it's really just simply when your imports exceed your exports. That's it. And then there's a trade surplus, which in the most simplistic way is the reverse, when your export is more than your import. And it is because of those two deficits that the president, to remedy that, you know, we need to fix these, Marco. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Yeah, I hope I'm not running for a criminal and trying to hide, and the phone goes off involuntarily. It's good that we receive the messages, but I've always been concerned how it would just override your phone with the sound. You know, I'll read it. I'll read it a bit later on. But we all do support the Mark Holder. But so let me reiterate. Let me reiterate. Again, a trade deficit is very simple. It's just when a particular country's their import exceed their export. All right? And a trade surplus is when the export exceed their import. It is stated in the United States that the problem is that they're importing more than they're exporting to those countries. And to fix that problem of the U.S. importing more than they're exporting to certain countries is the reasoning behind what is now called the reciprocal tariffs. And the logic is, quoting President Trump himself, with reciprocal tariffs is that it means, and he said, and I quote, it simply means they do it to us and we do it to them. And his further reasoning, end game, is the fact that he said that it causes them to levy and to boost the level out and to boost the domestic manufacturing and to level the playing field with other countries that impose higher tariffs on the U.S. Fine, that makes sense, but I am concerned about the Bahamas here. Because when we look at it in the Bahamas now having to pay 10% more, I believe it's unfair, and I do believe that there's a good enough argument that considering the latitudes that he has expressed the flexibility of in adjusting this tariff, that it's not unreasonable for us to be able to approach the U.S. and argue the fact that that really should not apply to us, not even the 10%. You know, notwithstanding the fact that we have tariffs on U.S. goods. It's called duties. All right? And the part of the argument was with the U.S. mainly that, first of all, there's a trade deficit, and with those trade, they put a duty or a cost on the items that is imported to those countries from the United States, which he says also impacts the business of going in. We have duty. But that still does not qualify us in this particular setting, in my humble opinion. Because first of all, when we look at it, remember, this is all triggered because trade deficits. Trade deficits. But when it comes to the Bahamas and the U.S. has a trade surplus. The Bahamas has a massive deficit when it comes to the U.S. So how did we get in this? And let me be nice enough to say, all right, you oversee it. Maybe it was oversight where we can point it out to you. You need to drop it, because when it comes down to it, and you look at it, Madam President, as the last indications from 2023, the Bahamas itself only exported $562 million worth of goods to the U.S. That's our export to the U.S. $550 million. And we import, and that note, out of that $560 million, that represent over 80% of our overall export, because we do export to Europe and other places. But then, when you look at the same year in the Bahamas in 2023, the Bahamas imported $4.19 billion worth of imports from the United States. If you follow me, where's the problem? $500 million we export to the United States. 4.19 billion we import from the United States. And yes, we charge duty on our imports. That's how our economy works. And yes, from the time we implement VAT, check our history. All governments have been progressively reducing duty. And was the understanding with VAT in the first instance, eventually want to be able to cancel out or mitigate duties almost down to relatively nothing. So we were even progressively moving historically in the Bahamas against even the duty tariffs in favor of other forms of taxation. So why is it unreasonable to say, listen here, I got to worry about other people later on. This is about whom drum beat first. Why the tax on the Bahamas? Could you remove that on our export? Because the equation doesn't fit, it doesn't add up. And I think that needs to be presented to the United States, and we need to consider this very, very seriously, because we don't need to be able to do that. And that is consistent with the pledges, the statements, the promises, and the explanation of the president himself, who wields the executive power to adjust or these things or implement or remove these things at a stroke of a pen. While we are at it and touching also on the financial services, I lament, as I'm sure I would have heard from other family island representatives, the still nagging issue of banking within the family islands. And I still lament the necessity of family islanders still having to use the web houses to get their financial services for the most part, especially money transfer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I had not been into a number house, I don't think at all, or definitely not region, but I had to go into one the other day just to send some monies to Andres. And you know, so that was my first time in there. I mean, neither here nor there for me, but it's my first time in there to go and do this transaction because that's the only way. That was the only way. Pardon? You know.
Speak to the chair, please.
Yeah.
Thank
the
you.
only way and be able to get this kind of funds. The bigger issue is the fact that in developing these economies, just like New Providence, banking is a very, very critical thing. Actually, for Nassau to be established as a capital, there was a few things that was needed: a seat of government, a cathedral, and a banking. that was critical. And we've seen all the explanations from the banking office and profitability in being able to service the family of islands and be able to deal with them properly. And we all here, and I have no reason to doubt, we all lament the struggles going on. And I wonder, because in the old days, and it's built in relation to our post office, what it will take to be able to activate the post office's services in that regard, to be able to help to mitigate it. I'm not implying that it is simple in any which way, but the post office does have the ability to function even as in some form as a banking institution. But that needs to be addressed. I mean, even right now, as it relates to the electricity, even now as it relates to for example, as related to the electricity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you'd find that Nassau, the people in New Providence pay more on their electricity because that by doing so, it enables for the electricity in the family islands to be presented at a lower rate. And so in a sense, it's a form of subsidies. I'm hoping that whatever we need to do for the sake of the development of the family of islands, that we find a way in which we can address that issue. And I'm looking forward to it because it is a great necessity. No, that's good. Once it's done, I don't care. I just want it done. As long as it's done, it's pretty good. So, Madam President, these are peculiar times. The other point, though, on to the money matters, two simple questions before I take my seat. That seeing that the AG is speaking and answering some of the questions, I would like to ask two simple questions maybe that he can answer for me. First of all, as it relates to the $186 million road contract, will that be revisited? Will that be expanded? Will an explanation be provided for how that actually came about as related to the $186 million road contract? If not, then you could just stand up and say so.
I'll deal with that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's the next question?
As you know, I just asked a question because the people need to know. So we can explain to that because see the problem here is if it isn't so, Madam President, like the AG is implying, this is my difficulty, period, across the board, with any and everyone. If there's an answer to something, why let it smoke and cinder on or burn on long? If there's a quick answer to something, answer it, get it done with. You know, because this is my country too. We don't need distractions if we don't need headaches. All right? I'd like to know further what is going to be done, even as related to $7 million as related to the land associated with BPL. You know, what steps are going to be taken? I heard of a release from the Prime Minister's office. I was not totally personally satisfied with it, but I'd like to know what is being done. I'm not interested in the argument. I'm not interested in the left, right, or center. It is a good amount of money. What are the options for either recouping, especially in light of what triggered it, especially in light of the statement implying or saying that efforts was made to reach the client. obviously before the deadline, I would assume. So I'd like more clarity on those two things, all right? So then again, and also maybe the Minister of Financial Services could elucidate for us what efforts is being made, if any, to address the 10% imposed on items now impacting the Bahamas going into the U.S. And with that, I rest, and I hope we can get some answers to those questions.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Reuben Raming. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. Thanks, senators, for their comments. As to the question of the 10%, we are still, I said to, we had a press brief, there was a press briefing this morning, and I said to the press, you know, these things are so dynamic that by the time we leave here, something might have changed. So what we do is we observe, we're trying to get as much information as we can. We're consulting with our partners in the region and CARICOM, et cetera, to have a common approach. Hopefully to have the things, the tariff reconsidered. And so that is what we do, and we wait and see, and we observe, and we can make our representations. As you said, Senator, we have a deficit. We don't have a surplus, so we didn't meet that standard. Yes. And I think some more information will be forthcoming with the other questions that you asked, and a more detailed explanation, so that all of the information can be given to the public shortly. And so thanking members for their support of the bill, Madam President. I think there's wide support, and Senator Raming said he used his Bahamian vernacular. He supported with a suck teeth, and I agree with him. And there's another Bahamian saying, is when your hand in the lion mouth, you ease it out. And so as we had, through the AG and all his efforts, try to get this as a matter that the United Nations will consider, we know that those things move at a pace. And so in the meantime, we comply and ease our hands out as best we can. So with that, Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act. As many are as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
Further second reading of bills?
There are none, Madam President.
Committee of the Whole.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a Committee of the Whole with Senator Darren Pickstock in the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with with Senator Darren Pickstock as chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair.
Sorry, Madam President. Apologies, Madam President.
Further second reading?
Yes, for the second reading, there's
Further second reading of bills?
some advice by the clerk.
Business license.
Oh.
Not according to Joe. You didn't do the second reading. Stop. Let's do the second reading.
For the second readings, Madam President, we have as part of it was introduced as part of when we did the
Midterm budget.
the mid-year budget statement and the debate that ensued, an amendment to the domestic minimum top-up tax bill, and we have an amendment to the Business License Act, Madam President. And so the amendment to the Business License Act has been come to us from the House. There is a, we wanted to do it here, but as well there's a slight amendment that we have to do in committee. And what we want to do as well, Madam President, with the concurrence of the side opposite, is withdraw the domestic minimum top-up tax amendment bill.
Senator Handfield? Yes.
Withdraw domestic.
Do we have your concurrence with respect to the withdrawal of that section?
I concur.
Thank you, Senator Handfield.
And so, thank you very much, Senator Hanfield. And so, Madam President, just as a matter of, to officially move for second reading and committal for an act to amend the Business License Act, there's deletion of a semicolon and a paragraph. What we're intending to do is when we amended the domestic minimum top-up tax bill, there was when we introduced it, there arose a suggestion by some businesses that with the domestic minimum top-up tax bill, and we're waiting for, there's a period of 18 months before that tax is payable, that companies that fall in scope may interpret it as they do not have to pay business license for that 18-month period. And so what we are doing is just making that clarification that up until the domestic minimum top-up tax comes into effect, business license will still be payable, just to remove all doubt as to what is happening. So that is what we're doing. And so I with the side opposite, we passed it in the House, and I'm just asking that perhaps I get a second and we move straight to committee stage. But that is what we intended to do. Thank you. So I move for bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. Madam President, if I may obtain a second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. As many as in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. The ayes have it. Order bill be read for a second time and committed. For the second reading of bills.
There are none at this time, Madam President. We withdrew it. Yes. We withdrew it. We withdrew it. Withdrew it.
I spoke to you about this, David.
Yeah, as with respect to the domestic minimum top-up tax, Madam President, you recall just before I did this, I got the concurrence of the side opposite and to withdraw the domestic minimum top-up tax. So it's withdrawn.
Thank you. For the second reading of bills,
There are none, Madam President.
Committee of the Whole.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do resolve itself into a committee of the whole with Senator Darren Pickstock in the chair. If I may obtain a second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into Committee of the Whole with Senator Darren Pickstock as chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect to the defense, for a bill for an act to amend the Defense Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The long title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill now be agreed in its entirety. As many as are in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The long title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill now be agreed in its entirety. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the business license amendment, a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The long title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Clause 2 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 2 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for an amendment to this bill with the insertion immediately after Clause 2 of the following. Clause 3, insertion of a new Section 61A into the Principal Act. The Principal Act is amended by the insertion immediately after Section 61 of the following Section 61A. 61A, credit applied to tax owing. Subpart 1, a person may be eligible for a credit payable in a year in respect of Subpart A, an amount as taxed by the person under the Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act 2024 for a fiscal year that starts in the year of assessment for business license, and Subpart B, the amount of credit under Paragraph A shall be limited to the amount of tax assessed under the Act in the year of the assessment for the business license. And then there's a 61A Subpart 2, which reads, where the amount of the credit allowed under subsection 1 exceeds the tax owing for the year, the amount of the credit shall be carried forward and applied to the tax owing in succeeding years. So just for the benefit of colleagues and the Bahamian people watching, this movement amends the Business License Amendment Bill 2025 that we just had second reading in committee for, and provides for the tax paid under the domestic minimum top-up tax. Remember, those are the entities that are multinational entities over 750 million euros a year. So for those entities, the tax paid under the DMTT, or Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act, to be applied as a credit against the tax owing for Business License Act. I think the minister on second reading explained that there will be business license, but you get a credit against the business license for the amount of DMTT paid in the tax year. And where that credit might be more than your business license owing, or your tax owing, that excess is then carried forward, so you can apply it in a subsequent year on a going forward basis. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that Section 2B be agreed as amended. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Section 2B is agreed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety as amended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill now be agreed in its entirety as amended. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The bill is agreed in its entirety as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the President do now take the chair.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many as are in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The President will now take the chair. President, I beg leave to report that the committee has gone through the bill, and there is an amendment to the Business License Act, Section 2B of the Act as agreed. Besides that, there were no
Honorable members, Senator Pickstock and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee examined the bills, having made one amendment to the Business License Act, Section 2B. Otherwise, there were no other amendments made. Third reading and passing of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Defense Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
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 Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Defense Act.
Order that this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Defense Amendment Act 2025. For the third reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
is there a
Second.
seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the automatic exchange of financial account information.
Order this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Act 2025. For the third reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Senators? Order this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Business License Amendment Act 2025. For the third reading of bills,
There are none at this time, Madam President.
consideration of House amendments. Resolutions. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Madam President, I move that at its rising, the Senate do adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do adjourn sine die. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The Senate stands adjourned sine die.